These are the best units to reset to ensure you don't waste this upcoming incredibly valuable reset event in Etheria Restart.
That's right. We want to help you figure out the absolute smartest way to use these resets. We don't want you wasting them.
Yeah, these are too valuable for that. It's about making choices that actually, push your game forward, help you progress.
Exactly.
Let's talk specifics. Who are the units people are actually thinking about resetting? Like, who's on the chopping block and why?
Okay, yeah, there are definitely some common names floating around. Xiada comes up a lot.
Makes sense, especially if you built her early for Dokioki.
Right. Her buff steal was amazing back then before the adjustment. If you went heavy on her then and now she's just not fitting into your Inferno plans or whatever, she's a solid candidate.
And you could use those resources for someone like maybe Didding, who's useful almost everywhere.
Exactly. Someone with broader application now.
What about Shadow Saya, though? You mentioned she's key for Inferno, but I've heard people saying maybe reset her because she might not be great in Aurora later on.
Yeah, that's a tricky one. There's definitely debate about her long-term future in Aurora. But my advice, be really careful about resetting her now.
Why is that?
Because, like we just said, she is so dominant in clearing the current hardest content, Inferno. If you haven't actually beaten those stages yet, resetting her might literally stop you from doing it.
Even if she might be less useful later.
Exactly. It's a bit of a now versus a later problem. Resetting her could be shooting yourself in the foot for current progression, even if you think you won't need her 6 months down the line.
So the takeaway is, assess if you need her for Inferno right now. If yes, probably keep her.
Pretty much. Don't reset based on speculation about future content you haven't even reached.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, what about Marl? He carried so many people early on.
Oh, Marl.
Yeah.
Yeah, the early game MVP for sure. Normal, hard, nightmare stages. He was the guy.
But less so in Hell and Beyond.
Generally, yeah.
Yeah.
His utility tends to drop off quite a bit when you hit Hell difficulty and start focusing on stuff like Inferno or high-level anti-sync Echo.
So when should you consider resetting Marl?
The big question is, are you still actively using him in other specific modes? Like, is he still core to your anti-sync Echo team or your Amber track runs or maybe for Ethernet Rally?
If the answer is yes, maybe keep him.
If he's still pulling his weight in multiple places you care about, yeah, keep him. But if he's basically just sitting there, maybe only used for one niche thing, he's a prime reset candidate. Free up those resources.
Okay. What if you built Gray, but then you lucked out and pulled Claws?
Well, that's usually a pretty easy call if you have Claws now.
Yeah.
Resetting Gray is almost always the right move.
Claws is just better.
In most cases, yeah. 9 times out of 10, Claws brings more to the table damage, utility. Taking Gray's resources and pumping them into Claws is usually a very good upgrade.
Makes sense. Any others that come up frequently? Victor, maybe? I feel like I heard some grumbling about him.
Victor definitely gets mentioned. Some people invested in him, maybe hoping for more, and felt, well, a bit disappointed compared to other units.
Said he's a reset candidate just because other options are stronger.
Pretty much. He's often seen as a solid reset choice simply because the feeling is that other units are just, way better for the resources you put in.
Okay. And SA. Especially now that Linglo is in the game.
SA is definitely on people's minds for a reset, yeah. Especially with Linglo providing another option in a similar space. But there's a huge but here.
Which is?
PvP. Late game RTA. SA is considered potentially extremely strong there.
Yeah.
Like top tier.
Ah, okay. So resetting her is risky if you care about PvP.
Very risky. You need to be absolutely 100% sure that high-level RTA isn't something you plan to push or that you have another plan for that content before you reset SA. It's a big trade-off. PvE convenience now versus potential PvP power later.
Got it. Always got to think about all the modes. Any other units worth mentioning?
Kraken sometimes comes up as a potential reset target too. It's interesting actually because some people talk about resetting Kaz to build Kraken.
Oh, really? Why?
Well, it ties back into figuring out those Inferno teams. Cass is obviously amazing in RTA, right? But some players felt Kraken actually performed better for them in certain Inferno setups during beta testing.
So that creates a dilemma. Keep Cass for RTA or reset her for Kraken to maybe push Inferno.
Exactly. It highlights how these resets can be used very strategically for specific content goals.
Okay, so that leads us perfectly into strategies. We've talked about who people might reset. How does this translate into how you actually use your, let's say, 3 resets?
Right, connecting the candidates to your actual goals. The biggest strategy, I think, is using these resets to finally build and test out teams specifically for that hard Inferno content. Inferno Dokioki, Inferno Termaton, those big roadblocks.
Like that Kraken versus Cass example you just gave. Using a reset to try Kraken if Cass isn't cutting it for you in Inferno.
Precisely. You might use a reset to build Kraken, run him a few times, see if he actually improves your clears. You also have to think about weird stuff, like Tiamat's AI.
Oh yeah, her wanting to use skill 3 first when you're playing manually, so annoying.
Right. And that might actually push you to experiment with units who don't have that kind of AI issue, just to make manual farming less painful. A reset lets you try someone else without permanent commitment.
So the goal is really consolidating resources,
Right.
focusing them to get a decent farming team going for Inferno, even if it starts with manual clears.
Exactly. Manual clears are fine. They're often how you start in really hard content. Get the clear, get the rewards, then optimize later.
What are the really critical things, the absolute must-considers, before resetting anyone?
Number one, and maybe the most important, don't rush. Seriously.
Take a breath.
Yes. The event lasts 7 days. You have plenty of time. Don't feel pressure to reset on day one. Use the time. Look at your roster. Check out what strategies people are sharing online. See what units others are resetting and why. Maybe even test the unit you're thinking of resetting in different modes during the event.
See if you actually miss them before they're gone.
Exactly. There's zero advantage to rushing it. Patience is key here.
Good advice. What else?
Think about all the content, not just Inferno, not just Hell stages. Before you reset someone because they aren't amazing in Inferno, stop. Think.
Where else do I use them?
Right. Are they critical for your RTA team? Your main anti-sync Echo Squad, Amber Track, Ethan at Rally. That Cass example again, maybe you can replace her for Inferno, but if she's carrying your RTA rank, resetting her might be a huge mistake for your overall progress.
Don't solve one problem by creating another.
Precisely. Make sure you're not getting your performance in another area you care about.
And remember, only the first reset is free.
Yep, that second and third one cost hydro crystals.
Premium currency. You got to ask yourself, is resetting the specific second or third unit really worth 200, 400 crystals to you?
Could those crystals be better spent on summons or energy refills?
Maybe. It depends entirely on your priorities and how badly you need those specific resources back from that unit. It's a value judgment.
And one last point. History lessons from past nerfs or adjustments. Yeah, it's worth remembering. We've seen it happen in games like this. A unit gets changed, maybe it looks like a nerf on paper, and everyone panics and resets them immediately.
Only to find out.
Only to find out, like a week later, after people have actually tested things properly, that the unit is still really good, maybe even essential for certain things. Or the nerf wasn't as bad as it seemed, and then people end up having to rebuild the unit they just reset.
Wasting resources twice.
Exactly. It just reinforces that don't rush idea. Wait and see how things actually play out, how the unit performs in the real world after any changes, before you make a permanent decision like resetting.